should get a lot of business from this right here.
Litigation against the manufacturers of the insulin, where they blew up the price of insulin. Are you familiar with that case?
You mean no? You mean Milan or which one is it?
No, it's the one. What's the name of that defendant in that case, Erica? In the insulin case. Yeah, the defendant, the manufacturer of the product. Eli Lilly? Yeah, Eli Lilly. It's Eli Lilly.
Okay.
It's against Eli Lilly. It's against, yeah, CBS. Yeah, Optum RX.
I think maybe kind of. I mean, so in my area, what I do here, James, so I do financial fraud, like a lot of foreign sanctions violations. But in terms of healthcare fraud, what I do, like I just settled a case back in November against Medtronic Spine. Basically, they lied to the FDA in clearance in their 510(k) process. Basically, they created a cervical implant that they told the FDA was similar to one of their thoracic implants, so they never got approval. It would never fit in the thoracic part of the spine. It was only fit for the cervical part. So we had that settlement after 10 years of litigation. And the other things I do are like cardiac device against Medtronic again, and Biotronic, where they're paying physicians kickbacks to implant cardiac devices. Some patients didn't need them. Yeah, and then I do a lot of pricing fraud too. Well, this is why I was saying that, because like a lot of the generic companies, and most of them are actually in India, it's called AWP, which is like ain't what's paid. So they tell the government basically that, hey, this pill is, you're getting the best price. Government's always supposed to get the best price. This pill is $1 a pill. And then there's a whistleblower who knows that they're selling it to insurance companies for 50 cents a pill. So there's a spread they make on the 50 cents, right? So it's a little, sometimes like Texas has a really good Medicaid statute to file under, but some states don't. And, it's all like now with, for the healthcare fraud, because I have some big pharma cases. It's really what the policy of the DOJ is going to be now with Trump in office,
Well, yeah, I think that the insulin cases are really, really good. They were charging about 35 a shot, and that's what they should have been charging, and they were charging up to $700 a shot. And
Oh,
they
wow.
represent more than 400 school districts nationally that are self-payers.
Okay.
So I mean, they're underwater on the payments because of that fraudulent increase by almost $1 billion.
Wow. Okay.
And you have the pharmacy benefit managers that are supposed to be protecting them, right? Not so much.
Oh, yeah. I think that's going to be a big area, though, James, down the road is the PBMs. They've had some protection, but the PBMs are just notorious for the pricing.
It's something else, I'll tell you. So this case has got a lot of legs, I think. It's venue in the MDL in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
And so we have districts all over the United States in that case, in a lot of fights. And so I think it's going to be a monster when we're done with it.
Right.
With the damages, and you got Optum RX, you got CVS
Oh,
Pharmacy,
yeah.
we got United Healthcare.
Yeah. They're huge. Yeah.
Big pockets there.
I'm just a little concerned, like for what I do for False Claims Act cases. There's a bad ruling by a Florida judge who basically said that the False Claims Act was basically unconstitutional, and I'm just a little worried about now like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Trump is kind of getting rid of that, as a tool to fight against fraud, right? It's foreign bribery because, everyone, whether it's Trump or Biden, I don't want to get in politics here, but, there's a lot of bribery that occurs overseas with these contracts. So,
They're going to take all the oversight away, aren't they? That's what they're going to do.
oh yeah, everyone's going to make, all those guys are going to make tons of money,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one thing when they're making a lot of money, but they cause a lot of harm. And
Yeah.
there's always karma later on for them.
Yeah.
So Trump won't be president more than 4 years. And then when he's out, then he may be facing a lot more litigation as he did before he went in. And then maybe he won't have anyone to pardon him.
And yeah, but unless James, unless he can have Congress create a new law, the presidents can serve 3 terms.
Well, that's why the midterms are really important, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
I just like to be optimistic about things and, be hopeful that, at the end of the day, there's less harm than, there's more good than harm that he does.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right, hold on. Let me just check in here. How are we doing, Michael?
This Facebook is really giving me trouble. I have YouTube going.
What's the matter with the Facebook
I
stream?
don't
Oh.
know. It's very cluttered, and I gotta really set it up.
So we should just then forget Facebook.
Okay. All right. So we're already live on YouTube.
I can just post it on the page. All right, welcome to the Whistleblower. I'm your show host, Mychal Wilson. Recently, we had the LA fires. Our house burned down. So I'm doing this for the community, for LA, for everyone to realize there's a lot of litigation that's going to happen, but also for a lot of the fraud and scams that will ensue from this. And so today we have a great guest here, Mr. James France. He's with the France Law Group. He's a well-known wildfire trial attorney. James, welcome to the show, The Whistleblower. Hold on,
We'll start over because the center is now different.
Hold on, we got technical difficulties. It's the first live show here.
No,
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And count to 10 again, please, James.
Count to 10?
Yeah, because your audio disappeared.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Keep counting, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
One more time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't know where his audio went.
We're losing your audio for some reason.
Mike, hold on.
Is that better? Okay, good.
Hang on. Hold on. No?
Matt's fixing up the picture. Is that better, Matt?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
This is the show is called The Whistleblower. I'm your host, Mychal Wilson. In light of the recent LA fires and what the LADWP has recently done, I decided to go live with a show with a famous, well-known wildfire litigator named James France. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so this is for the community here, James, especially in LA, and we can get into the fraud and some of the scams that everyone should look out for later on. But right now, so we had this disaster here. Our house burned down. A lot of friends and neighbors burned down. And let's start off here because LADWP today lawyered up, and they hired a large firm to deal with potential litigation regarding these the Pacific Palisades fire. And why this is important is because, backgrounder here is a lot of us believe that the fire started from some teenagers with some explosives on New Year's Eve, and then that fire smoldered, and then when the winds came, it blew up into the disaster that was there. So even though initially it may have been man-made, down the road, there's culpability. Is there culpability for LADWP? One, the Santa Ynez Reservoir was not full. The pumps appeared to have gone dry, and there was a lack of preparation. So let's get into this now. So what's your position now for the Pacific Palisades fire?
Let's assume that there were some fireworks and they started a fire in the brush. And the brush is managed by.
I'm sorry, the audio went out again.
We have audio problems again?
Yeah, his audio just went out again.
Hold on, James, your audio went out again.
We hear you on the Skype fine, but when it goes into the system, which is automatic, just a button, it was there and then now it's gone.
So,
All right, so I'm gonna just patch it up because I'm gonna we're gonna try to call you back again.
one last time.
But I'm going to do a backup and patch you up because.
So what we're going to do, James, is we're going to still tape it. He's going to call you right back. And if it's not live, then we can just do the recording.
No, I got to patch.
Not a problem.
Okay.
I've never had this problem before.
No, me neither. We have not. Although we haven't done Skype for a couple of years. During COVID, they were doing a lot of that. And it all went to Zoom. What do you think, Matt?
Since it's not working automated.
Okay.
Okay, James, say something for me, please.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, you were definitely patched in.
All right. Let's rock and roll.
Let me get volume. Keep talking, please.
Yeah, I'm glad it's working finally. That's great news. Appreciate that.
What are your
Okay.
plans for tomorrow?
What are my plans for tomorrow? We're having a town hall meeting at noon at the Fairmont Luxurious Hotel in Santa Monica.
We'll stop it.
Goes till 4 o'clock, and we're going to talk all about Palisades and Eden, and how great the liability is.
Where are you actually located now?
Today I'm talking from our San Diego office. We also have an office in Century City, and then we have them all over the state, all the major cities.
Okay, and so was it a lot of rain for you over the last couple of days?
It was heavily raining. I thought we were going to float away. How about you?
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
And how are the drivers in San Diego with all that rain?
Not so good.
Okay, so I got the backup.
All right.
Now let me go get Michael.
I'm right here. All right, let's go.
Please apologize. Please accept my apology.
All right, let's go. We're fine.
No,
Thank you.
no problem. No problem.
All right, let's try this one last time here. Welcome to the Whistleblower. I'm your show host, Mychal Wilson. This is our first live event. We have a great guest here in light of the recent LA fires for our audience, involving one, potential litigation, and two, fraud and scams down the road here that we want to prevent happening. Welcome to a great guest here, well-known wildfire trial litigator, James France. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate being here with you.
Okay, as I previously stated here, James, and let me just run through this here. Our house burned down. A lot of people think that there was an initial fire. There was an initial fire on New Year's Eve where there was some smoldering from fireworks or explosives, and maybe it stayed there for a week, and then you had the January 7th fire with the winds. So the theory is that the fire was smoldering, the winds came, and poof, right? There could have been additional down power lines causing additional fires. But in the end here, the Santa Ynez Reservoir was not full. And there's been times where it has been full and the helicopters have been able to use the tap and put out the fires. And so a lot of neighbors and friends in the communities are worried here, James, about if the government, like LADWP, who lowered it up today, if they're going to have immunity under the various codes.
Okay. Well, we don't see that, and we don't see the immunity. If they prove that, I'd be surprised. They tried to put out the fire. That happened with the fireworks, right? Mm-hmm. And if they didn't put it out, it's on them. And they're a public utility, and they've created a dangerous condition, and didn't maintain it correctly, and should have watched it better. And then we have this fire out of control, and then, moreover, they let their reservoir go dry almost. It was 117 million gallons, drained it for no good reason. I am just exasperated with their bad behavior. And look what it did to everybody. So the firemen said we don't have any water, we don't have any pressure. And if they had the reservoir available, they would have had all the water in the world, 117 million more gallons. So it's all on them, in my view. And yeah.
And so, sorry to cut you off there, James. So one of the issues with the reservoir was that they were trying to repair the cover. So that reservoir has a cover, and the cover, I guess, was torn. The cover is there to prevent, I guess, carcinogenic elements from getting into the water, animals' feces. There's a lot of coyotes, mountain lions, bobcats around there, raccoons. So it was offline. And, you know, I think for almost a year it was offline. And so, you know, the issue is here is, you know, can a government official, like say like Karen Bass, can they be culpable in this as well? Or do they have immunity?
No, they don't. I mean, the government official acting on behalf of or at the request of the public utility, the public utility is responsible. They did not have to drain the entire fireworks, but we don't even know that that's the case. The fire happened right in the area of their electrical equipment.
Right.
And our experts are trying to get in there now to look at that, but it could have been their electrical equipment. It's either the electrical equipment or their own bad behavior or deficient behavior that caused this major fire to get out of control.
And, you know, and so the other issue too here is, you know, the point is that, hey, listen, the government, the city government, LA County, LA City, whatever you want to call it, knew that this wind event was happening. So they could have actually filled up the reservoir. And they failed to do that. So how does this fire here now? There was you were involved in the recent Maui fires in 2023. There was a recent $4.3 billion settlement.
Right.
Do we see quick litigation like that, you know, 2 years down the road? The homeowners and the residents of the Palisades are going to be able to have some type of large settlement, or is this going to be completely different?
Well, I've been doing fire cases for almost 30 years, and I've never seen such a fast result as we did have in Maui. I predicted 1 to 3 years in that case. Mm-hmm. And we ended up having 6 major defendants in the case, including the county of Maui, including the state of Hawaii. So they were not immune, and they're not immune here either. We sue governmental entities all the time in mass tort litigation and non-mass tort litigation, and if they make mistakes, they're like us.
Right.
If they had a plan certified
experience, especially fire experience, you know the players at Munger Tolls.
Actually, one of our judges in Central Civil West is Carolyn Poole is a pedigree from Munger Toll, from what I understand. And she was not one of the fire judges, but her husband was the fire judge across the hall from her. And we dealt with him the entire time for the Woolsey fire. And then we had another judge in that courthouse, and he was for Thomas Fire that we were with almost 5 years, working on that case now, or a little bit more. So,
and so you're handling that. And what about for people who had insurance that was dropped, or they're under the California Fair Plan and they're underinsured? Maybe they won't, they weren't covered for personal property that much, or their own dwelling. I mean, we have this demand surge here, and a lot of people are talking about building prefab because being underinsured, you can't possibly build the same type of home you had before.
Here's how it works. Oops. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Here's how it works. If you have insurance, you got to maximize your insurance to the greatest extent possible. We will help you do that. We don't take any fees on what we do to help you get all of your insurance for your personal property and for your structures and for your landscaping. Now, everything else we get for you, we'll charge our normal fee of 25%, but we help you get all the other, and we help you develop the rest of the damage profile on your case, including all personal property, all inventory of that, your real property. We have all the experts out there to come out and look at it and figure out what it's going to cost to rebuild. I'm telling you, it's going to be over $1,000 a square foot right now. In Maui, that's what it is, and it's going to be more in this case, I believe. So we got that number, so you can just do the square footage and figure out what it's going to cost. You'll figure out you're underinsured to a huge extent. So you need us, and we have great success. We did the $13.5 billion PG&E case up in Northern California. We just finished most of the fire cases in the Woolsey and Thomas fire, Malibu and Santa Barbara and Ventura. And I thought we got great results for our clients. There was a number of other law firms. And so we're really pleased with that. And then Maui, the Supreme Court of Hawaii just ruled that the subrogation insurance companies, 143 of them, that asserted claims against our settlement, no less, even though that's not their money, that's the money for the victims. And there's a case in point in Hawaii that our co-counsel developed and argued in the Supreme Court that says victims need to be made whole. And so the judges in the Supreme Court on Thursday made a final decision that they delivered to us through the court system on Monday, this past Monday, that the insurance companies have a statutory remedy to file their liens that way, not hijacking our settlement of $4.030 billion.
Right.
So same thing they may try to do that here in this case, these insurance companies. So we're going to fight them like hell if they try to pull that as well. Okay.
Right. And then, James, what about if your house did not burn and you just had smoke damage? A lot of people are fighting against insurance companies for that, saying, hey, listen, you know what? There's smoke damage, there's toxicity, asbestos was next door. How do you fight that? How do you become whole that way?
Smoke damage is very serious. It may not seem serious, but then they melt windows. When the fire gets that close, it melts windows. It causes cracking in the stucco, and it inherently damages the inside of the house, where they many times have to rip out all the drywall and even the studs to have a house that's smoke-free. So people poo-poo smoke damage. It's not a poo-poo thing, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you fight that? Do you guys fight that for if someone says, hey, if the adjuster comes out for the insurance company and says, hey, look, all right, your house is still standing. We're going to remediate. We're going to move the carpet. We're going to, strip down, wash the drywall. You'll be fine in 6 months. Obviously there's a financial reason there because they don't want to continue to pay the loss of use. How do you fight that? If you get an insurance company and they pay the minimal stuff to replace the carpet, maybe replace the drywall, and you still have a smoke odor, you're still suffering emotional distress and potential physical harm from that. We take those cases. Okay. So we're not going to back away if they say, oh, the insurance company not going to cover anymore. It doesn't matter. We have a defendant that started this fire. They're responsible for all consequential damages, including emotional distress, inconvenience, displacement from your residence,
for health reasons and other reasons. Look, Porter Ranch gas leak, we handled 8,200 clients. People were out for 6 months to avoid the gas smell. They thought it could be very dangerous long term. It's the same thing here. You've got terrible chemicals from a fire, benzene, xylene. It's horrible. They're very dangerous. Asbestos. No, they have a good reason not to be there. If they got smoke, smell in the house, it's pretty heavy. No, it's going to be very harmful to you.
Now, you dealt with the Maui fires, and I heard there was some issues there with the disposal of the waste. And let's get to the, we have obviously the Hearst and Eaton fires as well. But the reason I want to focus on the Palisades now, one of the sites before they move everything out of the trucks, one is by Topanga Beach, and the other one's Will Rogers Beach. Why they use those sites, I have no idea, because of the toxicity. Some people called for them just to level the routes, which is already burnt, and use that parking as a staging area. But now the politicians have said no. Will Rogers Beach and Topanga. What are your thoughts about that with the EPA, involved in everything? Is that a big no-no?
Is a staging area for putting the remains of the burn?
Yeah.
That seems crazy to me. It shouldn't be anywhere where people are living, and it shouldn't be on the freaking beach. I mean, in Maui, they're shipping them off out of the country, out of the state. So they got to get their acting gear. Who's ever managing this, you got to manage it better. That should not happen.
Well, so let me just clarify. What they're doing is they're using those as a staging site, and I don't know, maybe to wrap, to clean the toxic waste, then it's put in a dump truck. The dump truck's supposed to go to the PCH, to the 10, and maybe out to Simi Valley or Silmar to a landfill there. But why would you have a staging site by the ocean that's already polluted?
I don't see any logic in that, frankly, unless there's no other place to do it. But they have to follow all the rules, environmental rules, and toxicity rules for humans when they do that. So if they're not following that, have it all in a tent or whatever, so it's enclosed. But I'm not sure what they're doing there, but it better be safe.
And so with the toxic waste itself, what do they do? So you scrape a property, and then after you scrape that property with the bulldozer, do you just put it in a dump truck, and the dump truck goes off, or is it wrapped and sealed? How does that process work?
That's what they do. They put it in a dump truck, and they try to put it in a landfill. And I've got a lot of experience with landfills. We're handling the Sunshine and Chiquita landfills right now, North Los Angeles, which are exploding in chemicals into the air and harming the homeowners, destroying property values and all that right now as we speak. So I'm not a fan of the landfills being used for that either. I think they need to figure out a better solution. I don't know what it is, but if they have it in a landfill, they better have it under control in a landfill, right?
Right.
Not just throw it in there and then hope for the best. They got all this underground river over there, and water's coming up, and they're having geysers of benzene coming out in the air. It's crazy. So you go from one problem, create another problem.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to get their act together. Who's ever in charge here? And the mayor of Los Angeles better get involved, right?
Well, I think she has, but I don't think, my opinion, she hasn't been that effective here.
Yeah. And the state of California better get involved and watch what they're doing.
Right.
That's what I think.
So, James, let me ask you this question here as we move forward here. With a lot of disasters like this, even with the pandemic, the government throws out a lot of money there. And then working with the DOJ, what I do, the government, the private attorneys try to claw back for some of that money from fraud schemes. In this type of disaster, there's some looting that's been going on. Can we get to some of the top fraud schemes for people to look out after here? Like, for example, adjusters who come. What's the normal rate for an adjuster? If an adjuster comes and charges 15% or 20%, is that abnormal, or should it be more like 7 or 10%?
I'm not a fan of them. If you have a lawyer on a case, why do you need a public adjuster? We're going to do the same work, and we're charging them one fee, and then you got to pay another 10% on top. It doesn't make sense to me. I think that public adjusters are fine if you don't have litigation involved where there's a defendant. That's a different matter. But here, I don't think you need them. And
Right.
so I would be very wary. I'm telling my clients, do not retain a public adjuster.
Okay.
You have us. We're going to help you with all your needs your personal property, we're going to evaluate your home damage, all that, and we'll help you with your insurance. And we're not going to take a fee for that. So why hire a public adjuster? We're just
Right.
taking 25% of what we get against the folks that caused the fire. Okay?
So here, I'm a whistleblower attorney, so I'm going to blow the whistle on our profession now. Ready? So is 25% the norm here? Because I've heard some attorneys and companies are charging a lot more, like, maybe, 35%.
Well, we've been doing this a long time, and we've had a lot of clients, and we feel that because we usually end up having with the lion's share of a lot of the business in these cases, 25% is a fair and reasonable fee. Mm-hmm. Any more than that, I don't think is. I really don't. Not in a mass tort case. Maybe if it's a one-off individual case, a third and 40% is the traditional rate, that's fine. But no, I think this is reasonable, acceptable, and that's, if you're a client, you shouldn't pay any more than that, I don't think.
Right. And again, you don't take any of the insurance policy.
Zero. We don't touch insurance policy, but we'll help you with that. Okay? And that's one of the services that we provide. And I'll tell you why it's important. In order to get more than your policy limits on your dwelling or your personal property, you have to exhaust the policy limits. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a full vetting of all of your damages to the carrier. And if they don't want to pay, then we'll put pressure on the carrier to pay what they're supposed to pay under the policy. And we don't charge for that. Where the public adjuster can't put pressure on, they can't sue, they're not lawyers. So no, we don't. We put the pressure on. We get the full policy. That's the goal, and then we make a claim against the public utility for the difference of what you're owed. Okay, it's really important. One other important thing I want to tell you: do not indicate any intention. Once you do that, you're potentially foregoing all of your restoration damages for your house and your landscaping. Do not do that. You may hate it right now. You may say, I'm never going back there again. Fine. Just suck it up. Let us help you get all your money for all of your damages. Then you can sell if you want. But don't even indicate an intent to do that. You're going to blow it here. Okay? You don't want to do that.
Right. And what about for those who, so, the other issue is going to be who dropped you?
Well, generally, insurance companies, it's a free country. They can choose to insure you or not. There's some rules coming out in the legislature where they cannot, under certain circumstances, drop you. But right now, it's on a case-by-case and insurance-by-insurance case, I think. It depends on which carrier. But if they've dropped you before the fire and then you didn't replace it, and I don't know why you didn't, but if you didn't, then you really need us more than ever because we're the only hope you have to get any money back. Okay? It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. We've got many people in the Woolsey and Thomas fire, for whatever reason, their insurance failed. They forgot to pay the premium. And some of the properties were $4 or $5 million with no insurance. Didn't matter because we got the money from Southern California Edison anyways. So there's no offset for them. They have to pay the whole bill, right? Insurance or no insurance, the defendant, public Edison, has to pay whatever the remaining damages are in the Altadena fire, for example. But and here, LADWP's in the same position. Right. They got to pay the difference between what the insurance was and what the damages are. And
so
that's yeah.
And on top of that, James, like for example, the Maui fires, right? There's a $4.3 billion settlement recently. So of that settlement, let's say John Doe house was worth $5 million, and Jane Doe's house was worth $3 million. How do you prioritize who gets part of that $4.3 billion?
Every case is separate. Every client is separate. This is not a class action. Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. So assume that you're the only case there is that we have. We're going to handle it from top to bottom and put a demand out for the total value of your case. And you have an emotional distress component, and we handle that too. We bring in any psychological therapist, whatever you need, we bring in to establish and authenticate your emotional distress damages. And we do it from the very beginning, early on, because that's when it's most prevalent that you have a lot of serious emotional distress. People are
Right.
suffering from PTSD when they lose everything in their life, basically, and some of them have to run from the fire, and some don't make it from the fire. As we know here, like 27 souls are gone, right? In Lahaina, there's 102 that were gone, and so it's horrible. And they see people, swept up in the fire next to them.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing. Fire litigation is tough for the people, and it's tough for us, the lawyers, because we really feel for them. We see it firsthand what they're going through,
Right.
and we're with you all the way. Okay.
And so, what other scams should people be, I guess, careful about out there? I mean, I heard stories where people have gone to apply for FEMA, and all of a sudden they say, well, you've already applied, and the person's like, no, I haven't, and there's been identity theft. Is that out there? Is that pretty prevalent out there?
Yeah, you have to be careful. You need to apply to FEMA. You make sure you get FEMA, because FEMA has advantages for providing displacement housing and so forth. In Hawaii, all the folks there are living in hotels because of FEMA. If they didn't have FEMA, they'd be living in tents at best or on the street, because the people don't have a lot of extra money there like they might have in LA. Right. So FEMA is critical, and they pay for a lot of the cleaning of the lots as well. So you need to call your representatives. We have a town hall meeting tomorrow, noon, at the Fairmont Hotel in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. And we will go over everything. We'll provide all the names of the agencies you should call, their phone numbers, and who to call, so you're not going down a hole that you don't want to go down and get in trouble with some scammer, okay? But
Right.
We'll go through everything with you. We have a nice meeting to explain the whole process from start to finish. Sort of like what I'm doing now in a truncated form,
Yeah.
but I'll go through in greater detail during our meeting tomorrow.
And then what about the predatory? I think it's similar to Maui. Listen, the real estate in the Palisades is pretty valuable, similar to Maui. And so a bunch of us who lost houses have been getting text messages saying, hey, do you want to sell? Or, I'm so-and-so with this real estate company. And it becomes very predatory. I mean, people have emotional distress. It becomes predatory, especially with the elderly. Are there any laws to fight against that?
Don't fall for any of those folks trying to offer you money. Quick hit to get out. First of all, you're cutting all of your damages away, because once they buy their property, you can't put a claim in for everything you've lost. It's gone. It's the money you get from them. And usually it's cut rate what they're going to pay you. So you don't want to do that. Don't go near that. Do not do that. Hold out with us, and we'll get what you need. That's our job. Mm-hmm. And you'll be happy that you did. And at the end of the day, of all the fire cases we have, I can count on one hand people that aren't happy with the result out of thousands. They call me all the time and thank me for what we've done for them. They have a brand new house now with all the most modern amenities. They're past this horrible time, and we've got to move forward and have faith in our system here and have optimism. I do, because I know what we can do. And we've done it over and over. We got freaking Maui done in 1.5 years. It should have been 1 year, but the several guys came in and filed this appeal and delayed it 6 months payment. Right. But we can do all this. And
All right, here's another question for you, James. What about if you didn't own a home, but you own a business and you were leasing? Because there's a lot of business owners, small business owners, who lost their business. I mean, their inventory. I mean, there's a famous pharmacy, a couple markets, cleaners. How do they become whole since they didn't actually own the land, but they had all this inventory? And now going down the road, whether the landlord actually rebuilds and they can have their business again, that's a whole different story. How do you fight for them?
That's a really good question. I was talking to, I think, the LA Times or the Daily Journal this week earlier about the issue when they're leasing the spot, and then they may not get the spot back, and then they don't have a place to rebuild. The bottom line is the value of their property is still there, so they're going to get all the value of their property back. If the landlord's so heartless that he won't allow you to come back and rebuild your house on your spot, like all the mobile homeowners are worried about that right now, then you'll have to go find another spot, but you'll get all the value of what you lost otherwise back through our litigation. And so it's a tough situation. With businesses, They all have, and you have an individual business, everyone's evaluated by our economists separately. And we do lost earnings projections of each business. We do it in the scientific method, how you have to do it to prove it, and that all the losses, we have some of the best experts in that regard. So we'll do all that as well. We have many apartment owners that lost the apartments, buildings that they had renters there for years. Some have 300 units we have. And but we take care of it, and they're taking care of all the years they're not going to get rent anymore on that property. That's a really good example of what you're just trying to say about the business is gone and they don't have any livelihood anymore. Thinking about Maui, all of Front Street in Maui's gone. There's jewelers, there's art museums, there's restaurants. Everybody lost everything, and they lost all their income, and all the employees have no income because there's no place to work there anymore.
So you represent, so you represent the employees as well as the business owner in suing for loss of future income and earnings?
Lost earnings, employers that were affected by the fire, if they're in the fire zone where they were working, we will represent them.
Okay. All right, here's another quick question for you, James. Ready? All right, because you brought up emotional distress, right? And everyone knows, emotional distress, but to prove that, to go to the insurer and say down the road, or you're suing LADWP, and you say, well, I had emotional distress. How do you quantify that right there? Should these people who have had emotional distress, do we need to go to the doctors? Do we need to go to psychiatrists? Do we need medications? Or down the road, when you go through, the discovery process, the interrogatories, are you going to say, okay, well, I took 2 Advil a day? I mean, is that going to cut it?
Well, we address those issues right at the very beginning. We have every client interviewed on a Zoom, and they explain the impact that this fire and the destruction has had on their life. And right then and there, we know if they're a candidate for therapy, psychological help, or whatever. And we recommend they seek that if they're having PTSD or those types of symptoms, so it doesn't get worse. So that's addressed right up front and center, so it's not an issue later on. Well, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you go? We, the lawyers, find out what their damages are all the way down. Property damage, personal property damage, landscaping, and right here, what's bothering them emotionally from everything that happened. So it's all covered. And we were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in emotional distress damages in Northern California because those damages are significant. A wife sees her husband burned to death right next to her. Well, what do you think about that? Right. I mean, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as bad as it gets, right? They're trying to save themselves in paradise, and they couldn't quite do it. And she lived and he didn't. So, yeah. So it's all different. It's variable too if you're in the zone of danger and you flee for your life, or if you're not in the zone of danger, but you lose very special things in your life. Family home that's been there for 30 years, all your memorabilia is gone, the wedding dress of the wife, and you know what I mean, everything that was really important to you, all your photographs of the kids. Yeah, so that's really right here, and it's a terrible loss. It can be worse than all the property damage itself. So
right. So, based on what you're saying then too, not just like the parents, but the kids as well, they'll have claims as well, right? In terms of emotional distress.
Really good point. Everyone in your household has a claim. Separate claim from the parents, the kids. I don't care if the kid's 5 years old, they have a claim. And the parents will file that claim with us on their behalf, and we will bring a claim. And they have different damages. And they might need a therapist for, who knows how long. But they have their claim for emotional distress, and the parents have the claims usually for the loss of the home and the personal possessions. If they're teenagers, they might have their own personal possessions that they lost. They have a claim for that. So everyone has a claim, and everyone should file a claim. I don't want to see someone come up in 2 years and say, oh, I didn't file a claim for my kids. My one child is, having some significant problems still, emotionally, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't bring a claim. We ask you, fill out a claim form for us, for everyone in your household. If you have children that are away to school, but they spend a lot of time at home and a lot of their possessions are there, file a claim for them because they have a claim. Okay?
Great. And so here's one more here regarding
Yeah.
health effects. So let's say down the road here, the Palisades fire or Eaton fire or Hearst fires, there's a big settlement, right? And that settlement's paid off. And let's say 5 years from now. And much like the 9/11 World Trade Center, you're going to see a lot of effects from the toxic smoke and everything. So 15 years down the road, you develop respiratory issues, or let's say that you develop dementia. How do you go back and account for those damages there in terms of the health effects? I mean, can you go back after you've already signed off on the settlement?
Well, we're also personal injury lawyers, and we've also handled a lot of toxic cases with pollution, Porter Ranch, and other cases. And now we've got the landfill cases with a lot of illness, physical illness. We have everyone examined by their doctors to determine if there's any long-term versus acute injuries. Many times there's acute injuries and then the symptoms pass. But we want to determine that there's no long-term. I know we do have some folks in the Eaton fire right now and the Palisades that have some significant pulmonary problems. Mm-hmm. They can hardly talk to me on the phone when I've spoken to them. And so they're getting treated for that. And it's not unusual to find that. I even have a client that has a skin problem from the Woolsey fire, and it won't go away. It's terrible. It's like not healing. It's been 4 years now. So there's all sorts of things that can happen when you're exposed to these contaminants. So we want to have you examined by a medical professional if there's any issue along those lines, pulmonary or otherwise, okay? So we cover everything now, not in 3 years or 5 years. Yeah. Everything's handled now, period, okay?
Okay, two more quick questions here, James, before we sign off here. One is, how do you protect the elderly? In a case like the Palisades, where it's really high real estate, let's say there's a mother or a grandma who owns this great piece of real estate, and then you have young family members coming and making the decision. How do you stop that type of fraud? Or of, let's say, a real estate broker calling and say, hey, ma'am, do you want to sell your land? And the woman's like, or the male man's like, well, I don't have that much time to rebuild. I'm not going to rebuild. So I want to sell. But they may lack the mental capacity there. How do you deal with that?
We're going back to an earlier statement I made. Do not ever think about not rebuilding. Your mantra is you want full restoration for all of your damages. Once we get that, then you can do whatever you want, but not now. All right? Otherwise, you're going to take a beating financially, and you don't want to do that. You're going to get a predatory purchaser out there to buy your house on 30 or 50 cents on the dollar, buy the land. You don't want to do that. That's the wrong approach. Then you're going to lose all of the value of your case for all the underinsured amounts of possessions and the structure that is there. Everyone is underinsured. When they built their house, maybe been $200-300 a square foot. Now it's $1,000. So you can just do the math. If you have a 3,000 square foot house, it's $3 million to replace it.
Got it.
Yeah,
all right, last question.
Most of them don't have that insurance to do. Maybe they have $1 million or something.
Right.
So they're really short. Okay.
Okay. Last question here, James, and let's segue into this. So I had an insurance policy, okay, and let's say my dwelling, the insurance company says, okay, I'm going to pay you out. Here's $2 million, all right, or here's $3 million, and you're excited. You say, oh my God, they actually paid out my dwelling, but on that check, all of a sudden I see another person on there, another entity, and it's the bank or it's the mortgage company. And now you don't have access to that because you were going to build. How does that all play out? That goes in an escrow account, but how do you use that money? Does it play out, or do you have to pay off the mortgage and start all over again? I mean,
well, every case is different, and everything can be negotiated with the bank. Mm-hmm. So that's why you need us, and we'll assist you with that. Let's say you have a house, a property that's worth $3 million. You got a mortgage that's maybe $1 million or something. And then the check comes in and you get an insurance check for $2 million. And then all of a sudden the mortgage company has their hands out for their share. Well, they may be entitled to that. That doesn't change the facts that your damages are what they are, a lot more than the insurance proceeds, right? So you're going to get a lot more there. But you got to deal with the bank. You have to deal with the bank unless you get them to forgive the loan. And the likelihood of that is pretty nil, I believe. So you have to deal with them. Sometimes you can put them off so that you show them that you're going to rebuild, and they'll keep the loan against the property. And then that'll be a lien on the property, just like you had when the fire came up, right? So we can help you with that. Don't freak out about it, okay?
Right, and one last thing here. So a lot of the firms, attorneys, especially in the area of law I do, we all kind of collaborate together and work together. So down the road here, will your firm be working with other firms to bring the biggest settlement possible?
Yeah, what we do is we form a steering committee. And on every fire case, our firm's on the steering committee. And we are in Maui, we're in Northern California, and in the Southern California fire cases, there's a steering committee, and we prosecute the case together. We assign out tasks for a certain law firm to do this, that, and the other, whatever. And then we work together on resolution as well. And so we work very, very cordially together, I will say, even though we're competitive in the sense that we all have our own cases, we're cordial and we know what's best for the clients. And, having the strength of the whole group is better than the strength of just one firm. All right. I think it's good. Most of the lawyers that are in the fire litigation business, I know them, and most of them are very professional and very ethical. So I'm not concerned about who we'll be dealing with. We've already had some meetings already.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be fine. Okay.
All right, James, so let's wrap this up. So listen, I think the best advice I heard you say on the show right now is that do not sell. So listen, everyone out there who's watching the show, or will watch the show, whether you're Eden, the Hearst, or the Palisades, do not sell. Go through the process first and get your claims and have that.
Right. Do not sell. Do not indicate an intent to sell.
That's great advice. So,
and then, when you talk to us, we'll tell you again, and you're going to promise that you won't do that.
James, how can people reach out to you? Website?
What's that? All right. They can call. They can check France Lager. What's our website for this fire?
LA County Fires.
LACountyFires.com. LACountyFires.com. And then our phone number 735. Is that the number? 855-735-5945. 855-735-5945. And then we're going to be at the Fairmont tomorrow at noon, and you'll get to meet us, and we'll have a bunch of our lawyers and staff there, and we'll go through this with you again in more detail. Great.
You'll have resources and everything there for
yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Listen, I want to say thank you so much for coming on this show here, James. Obviously, you're a fellow attorney, and I commend what you do, but you also seem like the aggressive go-getter, the courageous attorney who likes to fight the fight, the sense of morality and integrity. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. We love this stuff, and we were one of the only law firms that ever had a big verdict against a public utility in San Diego, $55 million on a zero offer for 4 folks. For the failure to maintain the property, and punitive damages of $40 million. So we know what we're doing. That's the key. All right.
And so since LADWP lowered it up today, I assume that you got the crosshairs on them.
We do indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what their defenses are right now. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, you guys. Thanks for watching the show. We'll do more of these next week, probably the EPA. But if you are aware of any type of fraud, waste, abuse, or corruption, you can visit the websites, thewhistleblowertv.com or my website, mychalwilsonesq.com, to learn how to legally blow the whistle and solicit for or inquire for legal help. Thank you for watching. See you next week on The Whistleblower. All right,